Hello and welcome to the Believe Show. I am thrilled that we're here today with Ilene Schaffer. And let me tell you a few things about Ilene before we get started. Ilene is an executive coach. I also know that she's a fabulous executive coach because people who work with Ilene tell me. This is her website. It's at ileneschaffer.com. And I want to tell you one other thing about her work. She created these super cool cards called Mindful Stepping. I'm trying to make them bigger for you. So I don't know how much you can see it, but there's a cool thing here on the cards that say they're cards to get you in the mood for stepping and walking. And my kids love that on the cards it says, warning, side effects may include a boost in productivity, a spike in endorphins, a jolt in life satisfaction, and a sudden urge to live life in color. So my kids really love your false warning. They think it's awesome. So thanks, Ilene.
I love that they've even read it. That is so cute.
We're going to start with the 3 lightning round questions, okay?
Sounds good. Hit me up.
All right. First one. What did you want to be when you grew up?
A doctor.
Like straight up pediatrician or internist, regular doctor?
You know, actually, probably pediatrician, and that went by the wayside quickly with Chem 1A. Got crushed.
That's a while. I mean, you had all of middle school, you had the high school.
Yeah, my dad was a physician, and I just always thought that's what I want to be as a doctor. So instead I work on mental health.
Exactly. Second question. What is one of your favorite foods?
Sushi. I love sushi. And just Japanese food in general. It's just good, clean eating.
Yeah. Nice answer. And third question. High school can be a challenging time. What was a good part of high school for you? Or what is something that you uncovered about yourself during high school?
Yeah, I would say for me, middle school would have been the more challenging time. High school, I really loved, and probably just, I felt like people started stepping into who they are and kinder versions of themselves, all of us. And so for me, to this day, I have a large group that we text back and forth, particularly given everything happening in the world. There's probably 15 of us on this stream. We all have grown up together. And so I think high school, we kind of got into, like I said, better versions of ourselves by that point. We didn't always have that in middle school.
That's really cool. Super cool.
So the community. Yeah.
That's awesome. Then 15 of you that still keep in touch from high school regularly. That's awesome.
Probably 50. I don't know how many on our group text, but there are probably 15 of really good friends. And it's super unusual. When I went off to college and post-college, people like, oh, I left high school so far behind. And so I think that's the norm. I don't think our experience with this group is the norm. And we all talk about that because we have high school and college kids. And we're like, we set an expectation that is not normal, that that's not what most people do.
But it actually might be more normal again now that we're in these weird coronavirus times. So who knows? Thank you for the example.
Exactly.
Okay, the Believe Show.
Yes.
What is something that you believe that others in your field may disagree with you about?
Yeah, I would say I believe that balance and searching for life-work balance is not desirable. I don't think it's necessarily attainable. I don't think it's healthy. So I actually think that fulfillment is the goal. It's the ultimate goal when you look at your whole life.
So people step away from looking for work-life balance and look for fulfillment in your life.
Exactly.
What does fulfillment mean?
Yeah, it means something different for everybody. And that's probably why I like it so much is it gets away also from that social comparison that really can be a killer of joy. So when you look at balance, you're looking at, okay, this is the exact picture of balance and Senya has it. Why is she such a superwoman and I can't do it? Whereas fulfillment is, what's my definition of fulfillment? It might be profoundly different than your definition or everybody else. So it's very personal. So what does fulfillment look like to me in the various domains of my life that are important? So even our domains are going to be different.
Yeah. I'm starting to see what you're saying. What are some examples of fulfillment? And maybe just 2 that are a little bit different for different people.
Yeah. So what might be, say, for career, I was just working with a client, and and we were talking exactly about this because during COVID, she said, it's so hard. I'm striving so hard for this work-life balance. And I'm like, okay, well, what does it look like if we move away from work-life balance, particularly during this time where so many people are working from home, and move that into fulfillment? What does that look like? She's like, she said, it would be still doing my work, having boundaries around the amount of time I'm spending at work. It's also around projects that I'm saying yes to and how I'm working at work. That's what this fulfillment picture looks like for her. And then it's also for her personal life is, you know what, I really feel like she's engaged actually. And she said, I feel like we're not connecting the way I want to because all my energy has been going into my work since I'm doing it from home and it's creeped into my home life. Mm-hmm. So for her, fulfillment looked like spending more time hiking with my fiance and making sure that that's prioritized. That's what I want for our relationship. And then also alone time. And so looking at what she needs for her alone time to feel fulfilled, whether it's time meditating, time walking, time knitting, whatever it is, what fills my soul.
Yeah. So here's what I'm saying. Hearing you say for fulfillment for the one person, which is the 3 categories. It sounds like career, my significant other, and myself. And then even within these, just categorizing what is, you're using success, you're using fulfillment, but it almost sounds to me like my own version of success. What's success in my career, success with my significant other, and success with my alone time? How do I get to those?
100%. So what's my definition look like? Yeah. Where am I today and where do I want to be in that? And it shifts. And what I love about looking at it from a fulfillment perspective versus necessarily a balance is it evolves over your lifespan too. Where you are as, say, a new mom, if you're a woman, a new mom, that picture is going to be so different than where you are when your kids are off at college or have graduated. Where does work fall within this picture? Where does my parenting role fall within this picture? And so it evolves over time. So you're constantly doing just a personal assessment of
fulfillment
today and what do I want for fulfillment.
What's your sense, Ilene? Do you think this is something on fulfillment that people might recalibrate every year, every quarter, every 5 years? What's your sense?
Yeah, I would say for my clients, life stage is huge. So there might be micro calibrations, throughout the year, but then the major calibrations tend to hit, if I look at my clients over the span, and I've been talking about fulfillment over balance really since the start of my practice. So, for nearly 20 years, when I went back to graduate school, that was the thing. I kept seeing all these women become moms and struggling for this unrealistic balance. And so everyone talks about, is balance realistic or not? And I said, I don't care if it's realistic or not. It's not desirable. That's more important. It just isn't something that you want. And so instead, what's that new picture? And so I would say if you're a woman and a mom, it often tracks with the stages of your kids. And so the big calibration happens at those stages. And even if you're, a dad, just a parent, I should say, not necessarily mom or dad, but it might happen during those stages. If you're not a parent at all, it might happen, when you're new in your career at, age, say, right out of college, 20 to 30, where you're like, I'm putting 100% into my career. That is fulfilling. Great. That might be a decade. And then you say, okay, I want to now start to shift these priorities. So those are the big calibrations. But I would recalibrate periodically and check in with yourself 6 months. How am I feeling? Am I feeling like this is where I want to be?
So would it be accurate to say that at life stages, which could happen at any frequency of time, you might recalibrate the buckets that you're evaluating, and then all the time you might recalibrate what actually is fulfillment in that bucket?
Absolutely. And 100%. And where do I want to put my energy? Which bucket do I want to energize at different times?
Really interesting. I really love your thinking about it, because life stages, we kind of almost don't even sometimes notice the life stage until it's passed. So that's really interesting to be proactive about that.
Yeah. And I think probably what kind of got my mind, my graduate degree is in life transitions and so I'm constantly thinking about, we're always evolving, we're always transitioning, and there are some critical ones that as humans we all go through, and then we all have our own transitions. A you know a death in the family or something, an illness, that can shift your whole picture on a dime. So all of a sudden we reprioritize. I think the pandemic and COVID has shifted people's thinking. And so, and you and I know words are powerful. And when you have a word like balance and that's in your head and it's like, this is what it's supposed to be, it can mess with you if if you're not hitting that perfect balance. I jokingly will say, but it's true. You do want balance on the yoga mat. You want to make sure you don't fall down and injure yourself. But if you're striving for balance in work and life, you are going to fall down and you are going to injure yourself, So keep the balance on the yoga mat and try for fulfillment. And I did this just real quickly. You know me, all of a sudden I'm a visual person. So doing something even like this with sticky notes, there we go, and moving it around. So it might be, I'm in the thick of parenting. So I've got it up top here. And then now your kids have gone to college. Okay, I'm moving that down and I'm popping my career up. I always have self at the top, but now I'm popping career up there. So by having it as a visual and starting to be able to move around these stickies, that also can keep your mind where you want to be. So you've got your word of fulfillment, and so you're thinking fulfillment, and then you have a visual that's consistent with where are my priorities. If fulfillment looks like this for me in this moment, where are my priorities?
So a little bit where the top signifies most important and the bottom is okay.
A pyramid. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, super cool. We talked before and you said, oh no, I don't have that much for visual today, but you still do. That's very
good. I did. When you and I talked, I said, I don't have anything specific. I talk through this with clients all the time, but then all of a sudden I thought, okay, what does it look like and how do you move it around? So
yeah, sometimes it's really nice just to move a physical thing to say, you know what, I'm going to move this. I am prioritizing this more in my life.
Yeah, and it makes you more commit to it more.
Let me ask the viewers one question, and then I'll come back and ask you a question. From everything you've heard from Ilene so far, and I'll put this up again, in striving for fulfillment over balance, what are some of your thoughts? What's a takeaway you have so far? What's something that you can try yourself as you walk away from today's session to do differently, to try new? And of course, type in any questions you have for Ilene. And as you're writing that, I'm going to ask Ilene, how did you said you've been talking about this, arguing for it for the past 20 years. How did you first come to this belief?
Yeah, great question. I think really, and it is what brought me back to graduate school. I wasn't married. I didn't have kids. I wasn't even in that stage, but I was watching my sister and my best friend at high levels in their career get pregnant, have a child, and then this expectation that they are going to be able to do it all 100%, and watching what happens to the woman as you're trying to do everything. Yeah, it's really tough. And so I thought, this doesn't feel like the ideal. And that's when, again, this was more than 20 years ago, way more than 20 years ago. But it was the expectation. Work-life balance was the goal, and I think people are starting to evolve from that. And I think we need to keep moving in that direction, because I don't think it's healthy for us, honestly. And I don't, like I said, when you look at your life at the end, do you want to be able to say, I was perfectly balanced, or I was really fulfilled? What one do you want? I'd rather be really fulfilled. So.
That's a great sort of summary of, hey, this is why it's important. What do you want to do at the end?
Yeah. So, but yeah, I think just watching women really try to do it and being set up for not being set up for happiness, not being set up for a fulfilling life, and feeling like these external pressures are dictating it should look a certain way. Yeah. And it's interesting as coaches, And if some of our viewers have had coaching already, a lot of times people like that wheel of life. And I think it's a cool tool. However, again, visuals matter. And when you're when you look at it, you're like, oh, this is out of sync and this is out of sync. And you're like, how do I fix that? Well, first off, do you want to fix it? It might be okay that it's not in perfect sync. And so you want to be very cautious using those tools of not having a wheel that, they'll say, if the wheel isn't even, it doesn't spin properly. That might be okay in your life, in this moment, in this stage.
What a cool observation. Just the dropping of the comparison, almost like everything we talk about with social media and dropping that social comparison. Maybe you don't need that category. Maybe you just need these 3 categories or 2 or 5, whatever it is.
Totally. Pick what your categories are and where you generate the most fulfillment. And again, that might shift. Like, for example, somebody may feel like I had a client, actually, spirituality was never on his list. And then later in life, it became an important part of his list. And that happens for people as they get to different stages of life. So it really is going to vary. And you always set yourself up for success, in my mind, if you're looking for fulfillment as it relates to you, not to anybody else.
What is a new fulfillment category that you have added recently?
Interesting. A new category. I would say probably not as much new as bumping up. And that would be the professional category, because I have one daughter who's gone already to college. She's a sophomore, and I have one who's 11th grade. And so I'm in the lucky spot of COVID homeschooling, where I have an 11th grader who is 100% self-sufficient. So and she does her thing. And so I'm able to, I have scaled my career all the way through as a parent, kind of using my own model for this. And so I have been scaling up work, career, and one of my areas always is professional development and learning. That's huge for me. And so that has recently just bubbled way up as well.
Very cool. Very clear examples. Let's say somebody is with us and they're watching and they say, that's it. I totally believe Ilene. I'm going to drop the balance conversation. I'm going to start looking at fulfillment. What are the first steps that person should do?
Such a good question. First, pick out the domains that are most important to you. So what really is important? As coaches, we don't like to lead the conversation. I'm going to now lead the conversation and say, please make sure that self is always at the top of your list. Always, because nothing else will matter if that self piece is not taken care of, self-care. But your other domains, you pick what you want, but that one's a must. So first, identify your domains. And I could give you just a few steps of first, identify your domains, define what fulfillment is for you in each of those domains. Again, you're going to want to revisit that definition. It's going to keep evolving. Then the third would be assess, where are you today? You know what your definition is. You know where you want to go. So where are you today? And then pick one teensy, tiny step to start moving towards that direction of your idea.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. We have a comment from somebody who's with us today. This is from Annie, and she says, I've told so many people expectations are the death of serenity. So try to keep realistic goals. And she says, inch by inch, life's a cinch, yard by yard, life is hard, and keep it simple with fulfillment. So she's in total agreement with you.
Oh, I love that quote. I'm going to have to pull that off of LinkedIn later. That's great. Thank you for sharing
that. The 2 questions that we usually end with: what is a thought that you would like to leave with our viewers today?
You froze for a minute, Senya. Do you mind repeating that?
No, I'd be glad to. What is a thought you would like to leave with our viewers today?
Absolutely. Really take a moment to first breathe, exhale, and then think about, what does fulfillment look like for you?
Yeah.
And then the follow-up is in which areas, obviously, but just overall, just what does it look like to feel fulfilled?
Yeah, like don't try to rush, you're saying. Just actually check in with yourself.
Yeah. And you might be surprised. You know what? I've got a a great example of somebody who we were working together, and we were having this conversation. She is someone who has highly educated, had a phenomenal career, then decided to move to raise her kids for a long period of time. So as I call that, work for love. It's still work, but you're just not getting paid for it. So she did that. And then she met with me when she was ready to think about, what's next. And she was really having, she had an action she was working on. She said, I'm really struggling with trying to figure out what I want. And I said, well, is there any chance that your fulfillment is what you have right now? And all of a sudden she's like, oh my gosh, you're right. I feel totally fulfilled. And she ended up getting another job, which was super fulfilling, but her life in its entirety felt really rich, really fulfilling. And so I encourage you to take that moment, because sometimes you don't realize it until you step back, but we're constantly going. And so just assess, where am I today? How fulfilled do I feel?
That's so nice. What an awesome perspective.
It was so, as you know, I walk with my clients, and I always remember exactly where I was on a walk. And I probably met with her, it might have been 15 years ago. And I remember exactly where we were, and I got chills. I'm like, it was cool.
Last question. If you were to snap your fingers and almost everyone in the world were to take some action, what action would you want that to be?
I would say, think clearly about your domains and what your priorities are. Yeah. So what domains are so important to you, and then how do you want to prioritize those?
Mm-hmm.
And you may have some on the same level, but then you might have some that are under. And then I guess along those lines too is honor yourself. Be self-compassionate around this. And that again goes back to the comment that you just showed, is that comparison is the killer of joy. So really, Anne's comment, I love that, because the more you can take away those expectations and just say, this feels good to me, and self-acceptance. Yeah. So that was a long-winded answer to
but also a very clear answer. Think clearly about your domains. If I remember what you said from before, make sure self is at the top, no matter what else.
Yeah.
Really think clearly about them, because they're important.
Yeah. So
thank you so much. Thank you so much. This has been Ilene Schaffer with Striving for Fulfillment Over Balance. Thank you so much, Ilene.
You are welcome. Thanks for having me. And everybody have a great weekend. Bye.